Ladies and gentlemen, I have never seen a more complex, honest, multi-dimensional biography of a black figure in my life. Give it up. Give it up for Nicole and Reggie. That is true. How could you make such an honest film about your own father? You know, with warts and all, flaws, his nobility, and the more honest you were about his complexity, the more noble he emerges.
Yes.
Some people would be tempted just to whitewash, as it were, one's own relative. But you didn't do that.
No.
Tell us about that process.
I think, well, let's first of all, I want to thank you all for being here, and I was so happy to be sitting in this audience with you and listening to your reactions. I've cried. I've seen this film at least 60 times, and I cried and laughed and was so emotional based on all of your reactions. So. God, my heart's beating so fast. It was a huge validation for me to have you all in the room and to enjoy this film the way you did, and I just want to say thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Give it up for Nicole.
Besides, I think this is a question for Reggie and I agreed on this at the very beginning. I only wanted Reggie, by the way, to make this film with me, and I decided that a long time ago. Reggie and I have known each other for many, many years, and we were always the ones at a party in the back in the corner talking about civil rights, justice, African-American history, American history, and the power of filmmaking and the power of image. And I'm a big believer in the power of truth-telling. And truth sometimes is really nice and pretty, and sometimes truth is really hard and ugly, but you still need it. Because at the end of the day, when I look back, I look back on anything in my life that's been tough or what have you, or my friends have been very brutally honest, it changed my life for the better, because they had the courage to speak the truth. And I think that's what, as much as I argue with my dad about everything, we're always tit for tat, but he tells the truth. And I think without showing the full man, to your point, his flaws and all, I would be doing his spirit, his soul, a disservice, because he's a man of truth, right? And passion and power. He's a lot of things, but at the core of it, he is truthful.
And thank God you did, and that was a brilliant decision. Wasn't it, ladies and gentlemen?
Yeah, I mean, Clarence is the definition of authenticity and integrity, which is why I think he had that effect on every other person we talked to about him. I mean, when I was interviewing Bill Clinton, and I said, well, Mr. Clinton, what was the most important advice he ever gave you? I did not expect that answer, where he suddenly got quiet, eyes lowered, and told a story that he's never told before.
He had tears in his eyes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting inches from him, and he's having this powerful emotional moment. But I think if you're talking about Clarence, there is no room for artifice. There is only truth. So to make a film that has any artifice would be a betrayal of the man. And, having met Clarence at the beginning of my career and knowing every friend of mine who is in the music business owe their careers to Clarence. Clarence was a Zeus-like figure for everybody. And so, we have been trying to, Mr. Avant, you need to write a book. Motherfucker, I ain't doing no book. So Nicole had the brilliant idea of suggesting, well, maybe books aren't for you. Maybe a documentary. And okay. And then,
Yeah. I mean, and thank God my husband, Ted, is here somewhere.
yes.
There he is.
Yeah.
You can wave again, Teddy.
Give it up.
Yes.
Give it up for Ted Sarandos, ladies and gentlemen.
But it was, as my husband always likes to joke, was it a conflict of interest that this film ended up at Netflix? And as he says, slightly, maybe, but he knew we had a film.
Mm-hmm.
And Teddy really treated it as a real business decision.
Sure.
And he said, do you really have all these interviews? Do you have them locked down? I said 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone has agreed. And I started mentioning presidents and senators and Hank Aaron. And I got to Hank Aaron. He's like, okay. We're good, because I was going to
In
take
fact,
it somewhere else. And I figured, I said, HBO or somebody. Somebody, I'm sure, is going to take this, Teddy.
And by the way, 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. 100%. Not one negative review. What's the spiritual say? Not a mumbling word.
Right.
Not a mumbling
I
word.
mean, and it's amazing because, the internet is where hate lives, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm reading the comments. I'm going all the way down on the comments. I'm like, because there's, some people say, oh, I don't read reviews. I read reviews. I ain't going to lie. And literally everyone loves the film, is touched by the film. And, a lot of people have said some really wonderful things. They said, Reggie, I laughed, I cried, I learned shit. and which was really nice. And then somebody said, you know what it is, Reggie? I said, I don't know. What is it? They said, it's the new 48 Laws of Power.
Right.
Which I thought, wow, that's because people now want to say, oh, that's the new highest level. Can you Avant?
That's great. That's great. That's right. So he becomes an adjective and a metaphor.
Indeed.
You can't beat that.
And instantly a part of Black history, because this is the story that hasn't been told.
Yes, absolutely. Well, that leads me to this question. So, in a sense, the greatest moment in the history of our people was the election of Barack Obama. Mm-hmm. I mean, the moment that we thought would never happen. And then he's out of office, and we've seen what's happened since he's out of office. This is like a B-zombie movie, ladies and gentlemen. And we thought that shit was dead, and it is coming up out of the bowels of the earth. So we need this film now. We need this film now. Did you make it because you knew we needed this film now? Why make this film now? What was behind the timing?
It had to be. And it was just a matter of waiting on the green light. So once Nicole got Clarence on board, and Nicole called me and said, it's on, and they say, oh, this is a papal order. This is a call from the Vatican. Let's go. Because, for all of us for whom Clarence meant the world to us, and he could not leave us without us capturing his story. And Clarence is retired. I'm just saying that preemptively because all the people are like, can you introduce me to Clarence? I need a lunch with him. No.
He's 88.
There's no hookups. The movie is Clarence's final gift to us.
Thank you.
This is him telling all the secrets, him telling the story and giving you the blueprint for your life. Because if he can do it with a 9th grade education from Climax, North Carolina, I know all these smart folks can do it.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
Nicole, wait. But what he said begs the question, which is on the mind of everybody in this auditorium. How did you persuade your father to agree to allow you to make this film? Was it about the numbers? Oh.
Well, it's a twofold answer. I didn't ask him for permission. I learned that from him. I went to him and I said, Daddy, I'm going to make a film about you. And he said, what? I said, I'm going to make a film about you, and here's the beauty, that you don't get to say yes or no because it's a documentary. And so the only thing is, I can't tell your whole story without you. So if you want me to tell the story without you, it'll do okay, because he's so competitive. So I said, it'll do okay, it might get like a C or so, maybe average. And he said, okay, what if I'm in it? I said, well, if you're in it, then, I'm sure it'll be great because you have such a great personality and you're funny and you're quirky and you're so complex. It's perfect for a film. And I don't think he believed it was going to happen. Then I knew, see, as Reggie mentioned, he's known my father for a very long time. And as you've seen in the film, my father's not, what's the right word? Try to be nice about it. He's not the most open person. He doesn't just welcome you in like this. So I knew any filmmaker just wasn't going to do. I knew that any filmmaker coming in, no matter how great they could be or what have you, I knew it had to be a great filmmaker, but I needed the icing on the cake, which was Reggie, somebody who knew him, somebody who my father felt that he could trust, who he could be intimate with, he could be vulnerable with if he was going to give him that. And that's how, really, Reggie is the one who was able to pull everything that you saw out of him. I didn't even go to a lot of the interviews that my dad was a part of because I knew it would just be too much. So I think, so he just, and then of course, his one question, guess what do you think it was? Yes. How much are you paying me? And I said, it's a documentary. You don't get paid for documentaries. But he was excited. I think he was excited because he was 85 at the time. And he knew then, and I was starting to, close his, think about him retiring and closing his businesses, his publishing companies, and, he's getting tired. He's 88. And I thought, this is the right time. Because remember, I've been thinking about this movie since I was 8 years old. The Hank Aaron story is really what stayed in my mind when I was a little girl. And I thought, somebody needs to make a movie about Uncle Hank. Wait a minute. Somebody needs to talk about Hank Aaron. And then Andrew Young would tell his stories. And then everyone, as a young girl, everyone would tell me their stories and share their stories. And so I just started making a film.
How did you, go ahead, Reggie.
Well, I just wanted to say, I think there's some of the subjects that are in the house tonight. I think Suzanne DePass is here.
Yes, she is. Suzanne DePass, if she's still here.
There she is.
Hey, give it up for Suzanne. Hey.
And Gwen is here.
Brilliant.
I mean,
and by the way, an old Vineyard family. Veteran of the...
And here's the thing, because this is a movie where legends talk about legends, and Suzanne absolutely fits in that category.
Gwen.
And there's legends, and then there's titans.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Is Mr. Hank Aaron in the house?
I don't know if he was able to make it.
Oh,
he didn't make it.
he was here earlier.
He was here earlier.
I'm sorry. Just drive around the vineyard.
Gwen is here. Where's Gwen? Gwen Adolph. Where's Gwen? There she is. Stand.
Gwen, please stand up.
Please stand up.
Gwen.
So when is the book? When is the book coming out? When's the biography coming out?
Gwen and I are working. We're working on that.
All right. Let me ask you this. You mentioned Hank Aaron. I loved the narrative structure, and the double helix, of course, is Hank Aaron and Bill Withers. How did you arrive at that structure?
Well, again, it's funny 'cause when you said Hank was the tipping point. Same for me. When I heard the Hank Aaron story, it was like, well, that has to be told. And I would, I've been telling it badly ever since I heard it because it's such a spectacular story. Because, when Clarence walked into this man's desk and just came all up on the desk. So it's like, no, this is my desk now. Like, he took the physical space. And then he didn't say hello, right? He just went hard. So that just lets you know the tone of the negotiation. If I'm gonna start saying nigga, you can imagine how this is gonna go. So I just said, well, that has to be told. It's spectacular. And with Bill Withers, it's such an extraordinary relationship. The fact that Bill, like many genius artists, got passed over by everybody.
Yeah.
But Clarence had the ear to hear who he was. And these two unlikely men and had this beautiful, complicated, long relationship.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's extraordinary. But for me, you know, look, there's so many, the fact that he cold called Andy Young. Just a cold call. I mean, and Andy explained, but back then they weren't layers. You know, you didn't call the secretary, you rang, you just answered the phone. And, you know, some crazy man is calling you saying he's gonna give you money. It didn't make any sense. I mean, so all those stories are so beautiful and moving to me. And it's a journey through institutions. It's a journey through Soul Train and Ebony Magazine, and you know, all the record labels we've built. You know, the NAACP. All these institutions get celebrated in this movie.
No, it shows that he's a fundamental element in contemporary African American history, political history, social history, and cultural history.
Right.
And he was the silent figure. How did you get 2 presidents of the United States to agree to be in this documentary film?
There's 2 words that are crucial. Clarence Avant.
Okay, were there any interviews that you couldn't get that you wanted to include originally?
Yeah, there was one heartbreaker. We wanted 3 presidents, but at the time, Jimmy Carter had just had that little cancer moment.
Oh, yeah.
So it didn't work out, but that would have been extraordinary. But, you know, hopefully we'll have a future president in the film, so we'll just see.
Okay, I hope so, please God. What was left? What was left on the editing floor? If you had had another 20 minutes.
Oh, God, don't say that
No,
to
no,
Ted.
no, don't say that.
Ted's having a heart attack. already.
Yeah.
God, extra 20 minutes.
No, I mean, you know, the reality is there's an hour as good as any hour that's in the film. Because this man, he used every minute of his 88 years impeccably. So the number of deals, the global scope of what he's done, the number of people he's touched. So yes, we have an incredible wealth of stories, and we really had to use a really fine-tooth comb to say, okay, what are the signature stories that really illustrate the man? And then, of course, since the movie's come out, I get phone calls and letters from people who go, oh, no, and there's another story.
Oh, right.
And here's another story.
That'll be in the book.
Yes.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
describe. This is an audience of filmmakers and people who love film. Would you mind describing that process of culling, C-U-L-L-I-N-G.
Yes.
Culling that huge, you know, an ocean of material down to 2 hours. How did you do that?
It was, how long did it take us to do this film? 3?
Yeah, it was supposed to be, we were going to do 30 interviews and knock it out in a year. Like, how hard
Yeah,
can it
we
be?
were supposed to be done in a year.
Right.
And it was 3
75 interviews, 3 years.
years.
Wow.
Because at the end of every interview, the interview would say, you know who else you need to talk to. And they would name 3 people whose names made no sense. Like, how did those people connect and how did that have to do with Clarence? Just talk to them.
Yeah.
And the door opened to another door, which opened to another door. And you couldn't resist the pull.
No, you had to tell the story this way because, you know, like he says, life is about numbers. But really what he means is life is about, your numbers are the minutes you have in every day, right? So he always says you come with one and you end with one. Well, what is in between? What's the dash? What's your dash going to be? What's it going to mean? So, you know, for me, when I try to drill this into my kids, which is, you know, how are you using your minutes every day? And my dad is really good at not wasting his minutes in anger. I swear on my life, there is nobody in his 88 years. He doesn't resent anybody. He doesn't say he hates anybody. He doesn't, nobody. I mean, nobody. Yeah. I've asked him, like, but there's got to be one person. And all he says is you have to pay them no mind. Why would you give any extra minutes to anything or anybody that isn't serving you, it isn't serving your purpose? It doesn't matter. That's what I used to call him and complain. It doesn't, that's the best advice he always gave me growing up, which is, it doesn't matter, all the junk that I talk about, because he loves saying to me, it is what it is. That's what he always says. And I remember when I was serving in the Bahamas, I was upset about something.
Madam Ambassador.
Thank you. And I called him.
You can applaud.
Thank you. And I called him about something that was happening, and I was very upset, and I was very emotional. And he said, and I didn't get what I expected, kind of like Big John said. And I wanted him to get emotional with me. And he said, Nicole, kid, it is what it is. And I said, Dad, I understand that, but can you just come down to my level just for 1 second and just, loathe with me? And he said, no, it is what it is. And as soon as you figure out what it is, and as soon as you accept what it is, then you make the change after the acceptance of what it is.
Right.
You can't change or propel yourself to move forward from a place of negativity or self-loathing or...
Oh, that's brilliant.
Right?
That's brilliant.
That's what because I couldn't figure it out, and it was driving me crazy. I was like, what is this? It is what it is. It is what it is. And then I hung up the phone, and then I realized, I go, I know what he's talking about. In his words again, he wants me to get my shit together. And then once I get my shit together, excuse my language, and once I get it together, I can then make the right decision. And what he caught me doing was I was going down a spiral. And I was making decisions out of anger and out of fear and out of frustration. And he doesn't, we can't quit in our family. That's a big, I don't even know what that is, anything. We have to finish everything out.
Right.
So even if it was a piano lesson, I hate the teacher, I don't want to do this. Okay, my mom's like, well, you have 6 more weeks and you'll be done. But it was a great lesson in life because I always looked at it, and again, as a number, as I only have a year left of this, I have 2 years, I have whatever, you have to finish. But it is what it is. And I think for me, that is the best advice that he gave me on my human experience here.
I'm looking for, my wife and I watched it at home, and then I watched it sitting next to you too. It's great to see it on the big screen. And I kept, both times, trying to find an adjective that explained who he was under all of the various masks and the manifold abilities that he has. The word shy came to mind, but is that a good word to describe him? Is he shy? What is the word?
I think it's Zen master.
Zen master. Okay.
Zen master, because what you're saying, a couple things. One is he doesn't go to sleep agitated because he gets it out. Like, motherfucker, I don't like that. And then he's done. I think he got it out.
Right.
And there's no passive aggressive, right? It's just aggressive.
Right.
And
but Reggie, aggressive.
Right. But he's also not holding on to it. It's done. Move on. Right? Look, kids have that beautiful ability, right? Kids will fight, and then a half hour later they're playing together because they don't hold on to it. The sickness of adulthood is all the baggage we carry around. So, he's somehow gotten back to that beautiful place of the beginning, and that's how he's lived his life, which is extraordinary.
But Nicole, where does that come? Your father became the Robin Hood of Hollywood. He walked in, the story about Coca-Cola, I first heard because Coca-Cola was a sponsor of Finding Your Roots. And Ingrid Saunders-Jones, many of you know her, African-American woman. Great, give it up for Ingrid. Ingrid was the president of the Coke Foundation. And she told me that story with the numbers in it. It is absolutely, he just walked in there, basically held a gun up and said, give it up, you are giving it up to Hank Aaron. It's amazing
And you
story.
know what's great? I just asked him, did he ever keep in touch with, I forget the gentleman's name, the CEO of Coca-Cola? He said, I did. And he said, when I promoted the Bad Tour, he said he called for tickets. And I got him the best seats. He goes, and I think, rest his soul, I think he did pass away, but my dad said, oh no, we continued to talk and And, he kept in touch with him, and I don't know why I never asked him that question before, but it was interesting.
But where did this impulse, to rob the rich
Yeah.
and give to the poor, and to spread the wealth, and
To-
more importantly to
yeah.
me, to teach others how to understand the business, protect themselves, and pass it on. Where did this come from?
I think here we have lots of different takes. The main take, I think, is without Joe Glazer, who you saw in the movie, my dad's mentor, and he was like Grandpa Joe to me. I never got to meet him, but I always referred to him as Grandpa Joe Glazer in my head because my father talked about him every single day of my life. He mentioned Joe. And I think my father knew without someone like Joe Glazer, especially, that he would have no chance. He wouldn't be alive, there would be no film, there would be nothing. And Joe, I think once he found this power, Joe literally opened every single door. It was unheard of, my father going into all these meetings and getting everything done. And I think something clicked in his head at that very young age, after Emmett Till, after all that. And then when he received this baton, so to speak, from Joe Glazer, my father knew without a doubt that he had a responsibility to share his blessing
Right.
and to plant seeds. And because, as I mentioned, my grandmother, Gert, who he was very close to, she would always teach me when I was a young girl that, it's okay, Nicole, to want to be successful and get to the top of the mountain. The problem with people is that they get to the top of the mountain and they celebrate by themselves. And they forget it's okay to celebrate.
Right.
But you have to turn around while you're on top of the mountain and try to pull up the next
Beautiful.
person.
That's beautiful. That's
And-
beautiful.
And I think he got that.
Right.
Reggie?
I think it's two parts. One certainly, the moral of Joe Glazer is gangsters can be civil rights activists.
Yeah.
There's a lot of unlikely characters like that. The way Sinatra opened doors for Sammy and Ella Fitzgerald. It's like, no, they're with me. We're walking through the front door of the casino. I don't care what the rules are. This is how we're going to do this. Joe Glazer was that kind of figure. And he taught Clarence the matrix, essentially. Like, here's the code of how things actually work.
Right.
Like, here are these pretend rules, but here are the real rules.
Right. That's a beautiful
Right.
way to put it.
And once he saw that, that was incredibly empowering. Just to see it, let alone to say, and I'm going to give you power to back it up. Right? But that impulse of justice that you're mentioning was long before that. That is clearly evident when he goes, my stepfather is beating my mother. I will kill you, and I don't care if I'm 13 years old.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely.
That's a man who said, I won't accept that. And what Joe did was give him the power to do it on the biggest possible scale. But he was always that man.
But what kept him from becoming bitter at such a young age? Not knowing his father, and then seeing his mother abused by a stepfather with whom he had, no affection and shared no. That could have easily been another narrative that everybody in this room understands that. Black history is littered with narratives like that.
Oh yeah,
How
it's like
did-
littered with PTSD. That's
No,
what I
yeah,
always tell people.
that's true.
Yeah, right?
It is true.
Right? I think that's why he did everything that he did.
That's right.
I think he took his pain and turned it into blessings for other people, which then gave him the joy. So by helping other people, it was his psychotherapy to help him move forward and keep he didn't want to he didn't want to talk about the past so much, didn't
Right.
want to think about it, so it doesn't want to rehearse anything like that. He just wanted to never forget it. But he definitely used his ability to help other people to heal his heart and his pain.
Yeah. He broke the chains.
Yeah, he
There's a chain of pathological behavior,
Yes.
right? And we hear that story all the time. The story we don't hear so much is the story of people who break their own chains. And that's the story of Clarence Avant. He broke his mental chains,
Yes.
and then he freed everyone else he came in
Yes.
front of.
Right.
Yeah,
Now that's
very
beautiful.
good. Yeah.
Beautiful. And unlike 90% of the people in this room, he did it without psychotherapy, right?
Right.
No, yeah. I mean, he doesn't. Yeah, he doesn't. I always try to bring all that to the table sometimes.
And
It's
he
like,
goes, no,
what
well, yeah,
are you
no, no,
talking
no,
about?
We don't have that climax.
Yeah, right, right.
When did you realize, Nicole, how important your father was to American culture and American history?
I think it's. I was very young, and I remember always trying to explain to my friends when they'd come over from school why somebody was at the house. And I didn't, I was like, I don't know, that's just, why is Muhammad Ali at your house? I don't know. I'm like, oh, he's just friends with my dad. Is that Hank Aaron? Like, do you know who Hank Aaron is? Like, for me, I didn't, and then as I moved through high school, really, no, I'll tell you when it was. I'll actually tell you when it was. I was in 4th grade, and Governor Brown, Jerry Brown, became the governor of California. And they mentioned his inauguration in class. And my teacher said something about him, and I raised my hand, and it was show and tell that day. And I said, oh, I have something to tell. He was at my house last night meeting with my father. And
Did anybody believe you?
no,
And
no. And she actually, and I liked this teacher until this day, and she said, you really shouldn't tell stories like that. and then she said, your father's in the record. I go, no, he really was at my house. She said, well, why would he be at your house? Because your father's in the record business. And I didn't say anything, and I remember sitting back down thinking, I'm gonna tell a story one day, and I'm going to explain things to people, because no one believes me. Every time I say something like, no, my dad helped with this, no, my dad did this, no, my dad was doing this, no one believed me, because everybody wanted to put him in his box that said he is a record executive. I'm like, no, he's much more than that. And then I saw the movie It's a Wonderful Life.
Right.
And then the angel, if you remember, in the movie is named Clarence.
That's right, absolutely.
And so even then, at a young age, I'm like, maybe he's an angel. maybe he was sent here to do all these. I really did think he was an angel. That movie and A Wizard of Oz. Because when I saw The Wizard of Oz, I thought those two movies explain my father to me better than anything else.
That's fabulous. That's a wonderful
he's
thing.
Oz. That's him, behind the curtain.
Right.
That no one can see. And I think what Reggie did beautifully in this film was connecting the dots of what happens when you have one action, what happens with just one action. And somebody standing up for somebody or something that's going to, like the Soul Train story just was not about Don Cornelius.
Oh, no.
This story, as Reggie told so briefly, was about if Don Cornelius went away, if Soul Train went away, then black advertising went away. And if black advertising went away, then black entrepreneurship went away. You know, everyone needed each other. The entrepreneurs needed the advertisers, and the advertisers needed to advertise on the show. So it was a domino effect.
Yes.
And I think my dad definitely understood domino effects.
Yeah.
And
Now, let's say, one of the things we attempted to do and quickly abandoned in the movie, we tried to figure out how much value, how much money, how much wealth he had created through his actions. And it's incalculable. It's literally, it's like you can't do the math of it, right? You can say these stars, you know, sold these many records and this, that, but when you talk about Barack Obama becoming president, you can't put a number on that.
No, right.
That's just changing the planet.
And speaking of planets, I love the visual metaphor of Clarence's galaxy.
Yes.
You know, not a solar system, but a galaxy. He's like the Milky Way, man.
Yeah, it was interesting because we kept struggling trying to find the right visual metaphor to explain, because there was a lot of relationships. It's complicated to hold in your head. So we were like, oh, maybe there's a family tree. We're like, no, that doesn't do it. And then I said, well,
I do family trees. Stay away from family.
fair enough. So we said, no, it's, like you say, whether it's a cosmos or an atom, it's the same thing. You know, and the fact is, and it's where all the power, you know, he is the sun, and everything revolves around it, and every planet has moons, and now we're getting it. Now people can understand who he is and what he is, and how all these things connect. Because again, it's a movie full of legends about a legend.
And it's brilliant when you had the one I don't know who was speaking, but when he draws the lines for you.
Jimmy
That was
Thomas.
yeah,
and
that
he kind of gave that to us.
Yes.
Remember?
Well, that
He's-
was, yeah. 'Cause
that
we
was
kept
the
going, wait,
interview.
everybody doing this.
Yeah, and Reggie said, "That's it."
You know, I've been given the signal that we're down to the last question. So this is what I want to ask. Clarence Avant is the original influencer as far as I'm concerned. He's a man, ladies and gentlemen, who parlays relationships and friendships into cultural moments. What do you want the takeaway for our people and for Americans, viewers in general, to be about the impact and import of your friend's life and your father's life?
For me, and for everybody in this room, and for our people, my intention was to showcase a story on the importance of using our freedom wisely and doing something with our lives worthwhile. It doesn't mean you have to be written about, doesn't mean you need awards, doesn't mean that you have to have so many followers. It's what is your purpose, and knowing your purpose. For me, so I always say, like, I say yes to this, and this, because so many people who we showed pictures of in this film died for all of us, doesn't matter what color, but especially Black people, all of us to be able to have freedom to sit in this room, to have freedom to do the things that we're doing, and they died, and they were hurt, and they were terrorized every single day for hundreds of years. So for me, it's like the least I can do to say thank you to people that I will never meet and never be able to personally say thank you to. The least I can do is do something for my life that hopefully is beneficial, but really, like, not just be a good person, but be an effective person. Be a positively effective person. And you guys, sometimes that's really just noticing the person in front of you out of Starbucks.
That's true.
Sometimes it's not always, you don't have to make deals like Clarence. People don't realize that it's so much deeper and much more simple. People want to be seen. People want to be valued, and people want to be respected. Period.
Right.
Period. Anything else is the icing on the cake, but the cake is value and respect. And that's all we're all hungering for. And I think respect is the highest form of love.
And so maybe one way to translate his maxim that it's all about numbers is it's all about worth.
Yes, it's all about worth and value. Yes.
Worth and value, indeed.
Worth and value.
Reggie, final word.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm very proud of this film. This has been making movies for a long time. This is my first documentary. It turned out okay.
Yes, it
But when I look at sort of everything I do, I mean, I realize there's a theme to what I do, and I want to show Black triumph, Black excellence, Black success. And, we're in a really great phase in terms of Black cinema right now. And there's a lot of Black women who are finally getting their voices. And,
Amen.
And it's spectacular.
Amen.
But I feel like, gosh, that's great, and I encourage that, and I hope that whenever possible. But someone's got to tell the story about these great Black men, because those great Black women deserve great Black men.
Yes.
And, whether it's Django Unchained, whether it's Thurgood Marshall, which I debuted here, and I have to say, I love this festival so much.
Me too.
Being on this stage when, we had the debut of Marshall, y'all almost made me cry, for real. It was really, I was like, pull up. So I love everyone here. I love the sophistication and the intelligence and the love of this room. So thank you all for being here and supporting Black film and supporting me. I'm profoundly grateful. And, you know, Clarence, you know, did this huge gift to all of us. And, you know, the least I can do is to use my skills and talents to tell that story, to tell the greatness of a man and part of why he was great. People go, oh, I'm so embarrassed I didn't know who he was. He didn't want you to know who he was. Because let me tell you something, like KRS-One said, real bad boys move in silence. And everybody thinks you got to be all up on the Instagram, all up in the video. You don't have to. You can just be quiet and change the world.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up. Reggie Hudlin and Madam Ambassador Nicole Avant. Thank you. Thank you.